Most people think igloos are freezing death traps. They're not. In fact, a properly built igloo can be 60 degrees warmer inside than the Arctic air outside. But here is what survival manuals do not tell you. The difference between a comfortable igloo and a miserable one is not just construction. It is the 9 heating tricks that separate weekend campers from people who actually survive winters in the wilderness. Let's start with the most counterintuitive trick of all. Here is something that sounds backwards but works like magic. After you build your igloo, make it smaller. I am talking about creating a low inner snow wall or hanging a hide to shrink the actual living space where you will sit and sleep. Why would you want less room in an already tight space? Physics. A smaller warm zone means your body heat raises the temperature faster and keeps it stable with much less effort. Think about heating a studio apartment versus a mansion. Same concept, Arctic edition. Here is the science part. Your body produces 100 watts of heat at rest. That is roughly equivalent to a bright light bulb. In a full-sized igloo, that heat gets spread thin across about 50 cubic feet of air. But compress your living zone down to 25 cubic feet, and suddenly, that same heat output doubles the temperature rise. Traditional Inuit families knew this instinctively. They built the main igloo structure, then created designated zones inside. Sleeping areas were walled off from cooking areas. Storage stayed separated from living areas. Each zone could be optimized for its specific temperature needs. The practical application is simple. After your dome is complete, stack snow blocks about 18 inches high to create a smaller chamber within the main space. Or hang a thick tarp, or hide from the ceiling to partition off your core living area. You are essentially creating a heated tent inside your igloo. The temperature difference is dramatic. While the outer igloo might hover from 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, your inner room can push from 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit with just body heat. That is the difference between surviving and being comfortable. If you thought making your space smaller was clever, wait until you see how to make cold air actually work for you instead of against you. Most people build igloo doorways like house doors. Big mistake. What you need is a cold trap tunnel that works with physics instead of fighting it. Here is how to do it right. Instead of a simple doorway, carve your entrance as a tunnel that dips down below the floor level of your main chamber, then rises slightly as it enters the igloo. Picture a shallow, U-shaped dip in the snow. Why does this matter? Cold air is heavy. It flows downhill like invisible water. When outside air hits your tunnel entrance, physics forces it to pool in the lowest point of that U-shaped dip. The frigid air gets trapped there instead of rolling directly into your living space. I learned this the hard way during a winter camping trip in Minnesota. I built a standard igloo with a straight entrance. Every time the wind picked up, it felt like someone opened a freezer door inside my shelter. The temperature would drop 10 degrees instantly. The next night, I carved a proper cold trap entrance. Same wind conditions, same outside temperature. The difference was incredible. Cold air would hit the entrance and just stop. Meanwhile, my warm air stayed exactly where I needed it, in the upper part of the igloo where I was actually sitting and sleeping. The tunnel does not need to be elaborate. Dig down about 8 to 12 inches below your floor level, extend it 2 to 3 feet forward, then slope it back up into your main chamber. The key is creating that low point where cold air gets stuck. Here is the bonus effect nobody mentions. This design also creates natural ventilation. Warm air rises and exits through tiny gaps near your dome's peak, while the cold trap prevents the harsh outside air from rushing in to replace it. You get air exchange without the Arctic blast. Traditional igloos use this principle religiously. Archaeological digs of ancient Inuit settlements show this U-shaped entrance design again and again. They figured it out thousands of years ago, what most modern survival guides completely ignore. Think trapping cold air is smart? Wait until you discover where most people lose 20 degrees of heat without even knowing it. Here's something that sounds obvious, but most people get wrong. You need to sleep up off the ground, not just for comfort, for survival. Build a compact sleeping platform 40 to 60 centimeters above floor level. This puts you in the warmest air layer under the dome, not down in the cold zone near the ground. The temperature difference between floor level and mid-height in an igloo can be 15 to 20 degrees. Warm air rises. We all learned this in elementary school, but somehow forget it when we're exhausted and building emergency shelters. Your body heat, any candle warmth, even the heat from your breathing, it all floats upward and gets trapped under the dome. Down on the ground, you are literally sleeping in the coldest part of your igloo. I tested this with a digital thermometer in winter shelters. At floor level, the temperature was 28 degrees. At platform height, it was 43 degrees. That is not just comfort. That is the difference between hypothermia and a decent night's sleep. Building the platform is straightforward, but it requires planning. As you construct your igloo walls, leave gaps to slide support blocks underneath your future sleeping area. Think of it like building a bunk bed made of snow. The platform itself can be flat snow blocks, packed snow, or even logs if you are in a forested area. Traditional Inuit igloos always featured raised sleeping platforms. Archaeological evidence shows these were not luxury upgrades. They were standard survival features. Entire families would sleep on these elevated areas, sometimes with different height levels for different family members, based on age and body heat production. The platform serves double duty too. The space underneath becomes storage for gear that needs to stay cold, like food for preservation. Meanwhile, you are sleeping in the thermal sweet spot where all the warm air naturally collects. Thought sleeping in the right spot was enough? Wait until you see how one simple hanging trick can save hours of accumulated heat. Think of your igloo entrance like a bank vault. You never want a direct line of sight from the outside world to your warm core. What you need is an airlock system using a hanging curtain of snow, ice, or hide. Position this door just inside your entrance tunnel. It can be a thick slab of snow propped at an angle, a chunk of clear ice hanging from the ceiling, or animal hide if you have it. The key is blocking that direct path while still allowing people to squeeze past. Every time someone crawls in or out of a regular igloo, warm air rushes toward the entrance like water through a drain. You lose minutes of accumulated heat in seconds. But with an airlock curtain, your warm air hits this barrier and stays trapped in the main chamber. The physics are simple but effective. When someone enters, they push past the curtain into a small transitional space. The curtain falls back into place behind them, sealing off the main chamber. Then they can take time to remove wet gear, shake off snow, and adjust to the temperature before entering your living space. I learned this from an Inuit elder in northern Canada who showed me traditional shelter designs. He called it the wind wall and explained that it was the difference between a cold night and a warm one. His grandfather had taught him that any shelter without an airlock was not really a shelter at all. The material matters less than the concept. I have used everything from packed snow slabs to military ponchos. Even a thick sleeping bag hung vertically works perfectly. The goal is breaking up that airflow while maintaining access. Here is the maintenance tip most people miss. The curtain itself will collect frost and ice from the temperature difference. Check it regularly and brush off buildup, or it becomes too heavy and stops sealing properly. If you thought body heat was your only heating option, wait until you discover this ancient thermal battery trick. This is where bushcraft meets ancient technology. Warm rocks become your secret heating system, radiating warmth for hours without flames, smoke, or melting your walls. Here's how it works. Find fist-sized stones and warm them gently near a fire outside your igloo. Not red hot, that is dangerous. Just warm to the touch, maybe 120 to 130 degrees. Then bring them inside and bury them under a thin layer of snow, or place them under your sleeping platform. The rocks act like thermal batteries, slowly releasing heat upward over the next 6 to 8 hours. Unlike a candle or oil lamp that creates hot spots and melting risks, heated stones provide gentle, consistent warmth that will not destabilize your igloo structure. I discovered this technique during a survival course in Alaska. Our instructor mentioned that indigenous peoples across the Arctic used heated stones for winter shelters. It seemed too simple to work, but after a night sleeping above buried warm rocks, I was convinced. My sleeping bag felt like it had built-in heating. The key is temperature control. Stones that are too hot will melt surrounding snow and create slush problems. Stones that are too cool will not provide enough heat benefit. You want them warm enough that you can hold them for 10 to 15 seconds before they become uncomfortable. Placement strategy matters too. Bury them about 6 inches under your sleeping area so the heat radiates upward through the snow layer. The snow acts as insulation, slowing the heat release and preventing hot spots. You get steady warmth instead of brief, intense heat. Safety note: always test stones before bringing them inside. Some types of rock can explode when heated due to trapped moisture. Use river rocks or stones that have been dry for extended periods. And maintain good ventilation. You do not want carbon monoxide buildup from any heating method. Traditional Sami reindeer herders used this technique in temporary shelters across Scandinavia. They would heat stones during evening fires, then use them for overnight warmth in snow shelters that could not accommodate open flames. Think warm rocks are impressive? Wait until you see how to double your candle's heat output using nothing but ice. Here is a trick that doubles the effectiveness of any small flame inside your igloo. Create a reflector using clear ice to bounce both light and radiant heat back into your living space instead of losing it into the walls. Find or create a block of clear ice about the size of a dinner plate. Smooth and slightly polish the surface using body heat from your hands or breath fog. Position this ice block directly behind your candle or oil lamp so it acts as a crude mirror. The science is beautiful. Instead of your flame's heat radiating in all directions and getting absorbed by snow walls, the ice reflector catches roughly half that thermal energy and bounces it back toward you. You essentially get 50% more warmth from the same flame. I tested this during winter camping in the Adirondacks. A single candle in an igloo without a reflector was comfortable within arm's reach and cold everywhere else. The same candle with an ice mirror warmed the entire shelter. The difference was dramatic enough that my thermometer showed a 5-degree increase in ambient temperature. Clear ice works better than snow or regular ice because it is denser and creates a smoother reflecting surface. You can make it by melting snow in a container and letting it refreeze slowly, which pushes out air bubbles. Or find naturally clear ice from frozen ponds or icicles. Positioning is critical. The reflector needs to be close enough to catch radiant heat, but far enough away to avoid melting. Usually 8 to 12 inches behind the flame works perfectly. Angle it slightly to direct heat toward your main living area, rather than straight back at you. The bonus effect is light amplification. Your single candle suddenly illuminates the entire igloo instead of creating a small, bright spot with deep shadows everywhere else. Better visibility means less fumbling around in the dark, and that means you stay warmer by moving efficiently. Medieval castles used polished metal reflectors behind torches for the same principle. Igloos just substitute ice for metal, and the physics work identically. Thought doubling your heat was good? Wait until you discover this trick that creates a personal heat dome above your sleeping area. This technique sounds complicated but works like magic. Rig a dark tarp or blanket above your sleeping area with the dark side facing down toward you and a light-colored or reflective side facing up toward the snow dome. The dark surface absorbs radiant heat from your body and any small flames, then re-radiates that warmth back down toward you like a personal heat dome. Meanwhile, the light-colored top side reduces heat loss into the igloo walls by reflecting thermal energy back instead of letting it soak into the snow. Think of it as creating a microclimate within your igloo. Your body heat, which normally radiates away in all directions, gets trapped and recycled in the space between you and the canopy. The temperature difference under that dark canopy can be 10 to 15 degrees warmer than the rest of the igloo. I learned this from winter mountaineering guides who use similar setups in snow caves. They call it a heat ceiling and consider it essential for overnight comfort in extreme conditions. The military uses reflective emergency blankets with the same concept. The shiny side reflects heat and the dark side absorbs and re-radiates. Materials matter here. Dark wool blankets work exceptionally well because wool continues insulating even when damp. Military surplus poncho liners are perfect. They are designed for exactly this type of application. Even a dark sleeping bag opened flat can serve as an effective heat canopy. The setup requires some ingenuity. You need anchor points in your igloo ceiling to hang the canopy. I use trekking poles, ski poles, or even sturdy sticks wedged between walls. The canopy should hang 18 to 24 inches above your sleeping area, close enough to trap heat, but far enough to avoid feeling claustrophobic. Maintenance is simple but important. The canopy will collect condensation from warm air hitting its cold top surface. This actually helps with humidity control. The fabric absorbs excess moisture instead of it freezing on your igloo walls. Check periodically and wring out accumulated water. Traditional Bedouin tents used this same principle in reverse. Light-colored outer layers reflect desert heat, and dark inner layers create cooler microclimates. Igloos just flip the concept for cold weather survival. If you thought a heat ceiling was clever, wait until you see how animal hides solve the moisture problem that destroys most igloos. Most people think animal hides are just for comfort, like Arctic carpet. Wrong. They are actually sophisticated vapor barriers that solve the biggest problem nobody talks about: balancing warmth retention with moisture control. Line your main living area with animal hides or thick mats. They create a barrier between your warm, moist interior air and the snow walls. This keeps more warmth near your body while protecting the igloo structure from direct radiant heat that could cause melting. Here's the engineering part. Your breath, body heat, and any cooking create warm, humid air. Without hides, this moisture hits cold snow walls and instantly freezes, creating ice buildup that weakens your igloo structure. The hides absorb that excess humidity and release it slowly to the snow, maintaining structural integrity. But the warmth benefit is even more important. Hides act like thermal blankets covering your floor and lower walls. Instead of your body heat radiating directly into cold snow, it gets trapped in the hide layer first. You are essentially sitting on insulation instead of a frozen surface. I tested this during a winter survival course in Canada. On the first night, no hides were used, just sleeping directly on snow platforms. I was constantly cold from below, and I could feel my body heat getting sucked away through the floor. On the second night, a caribou hide covered the entire floor area. It was a completely different experience. The hide held my body heat and created a warm zone that lasted all night. The type of hide matters. Thick-haired animal skins like buffalo, caribou, or sheepskin work best because the hair traps additional air for insulation. But even canvas tarps or thick wool blankets provide significant benefits using the same principle. Placement strategy is key. Focus on areas where you will spend the most time, sleeping areas, sitting areas, and cooking zones. Do not waste materials covering storage areas or entrance tunnels where you will not benefit from the thermal properties. Traditional Inuit families considered hide floor coverings essential, not optional. Archaeological evidence shows that every permanent winter igloo had extensive hide coverings, often multiple layers in sleeping areas. They understood the physics even if they could not explain the science. Thought strategic hide placement was the ultimate trick. Wait until you discover the master strategy that can boost your igloo temperature by 20 degrees. This is the master strategy that ties everything together. Instead of spreading activities randomly throughout your igloo, concentrate the most heat-producing people and tasks in the upper, central part of your dome where physics naturally gathers warm air under the peak. Put cooking, gear repair, storytelling circles, and the most active people in that prime thermal real estate under the dome's peak. Reserve the entrance side and lower areas for storage and items that do not need warmth. When multiple people and heat sources work in the same zone, the temperature can jump 15 to 20 degrees in that concentrated area. The math is simple but powerful. An igloo can be 40 to 60 degrees warmer inside than outside when enough heat sources are properly concentrated. But if you spread those same heat sources randomly, you might only gain 20 to 30 degrees because the thermal energy gets diluted across the entire space. I learned this during a winter camping trip with experienced guides in northern Minnesota. 4 of us were in a large igloo, but we initially spread out like we would in a summer tent. Cold night, mediocre warmth, the lead guide called us over and repositioned everyone in the upper center zone. Same igloo, same people, same outside temperature. Clustering our body heat in the thermal sweet spot made it feel like we had added a heater. Activity zoning requires planning, but pays huge dividends. Cooking generates both heat and moisture, so position your stove area under the dome where rising warm air naturally flows. Gear maintenance keeps people active and moving, which increases body heat production. Do gear work in the warmest zone so that extra heat gets trapped and amplified. Storage strategy matters too. Keep items that freeze easily, such as water, batteries, and food, in the warmer upper zones. Items that do not care about temperature, like tools, extra clothes, and fuel, can go in the cooler entrance areas or lower sections. Traditional Inuit family igloos showed sophisticated zoning patterns. Sleeping platforms were placed in the warmest areas, oil lamps positioned for maximum thermal efficiency, and storage areas carefully planned around temperature gradients. They turned basic physics into comfortable living spaces using nothing but snow and planning. 9 tricks that transform a basic snow dome into a survival shelter that could save your life. Master these 9 tricks, and you will never look at snow the same way again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know what you think about the tricks.